welcome to another episode of Time Out with Derek and Joe. For Joe Aslina, I am Derek and O. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us. Joe, we're diving right into playoff season for the NFL. The first season that we actually started when we did our podcast, and we've gone all the way through it, and we made it to the playoffs. What do we got lined up for today?
We have in our first segment here, we have the NFL playoff tree, if you will, and we're going to be talking about these 6 games that are going to be pretty important to all these teams, and it will just be interesting to see, what our audience is thinking at this point, because I want to hear the feedback of, do some of these teams really have a shot to do some damage in the playoffs? So we got some good stuff to talk about, Derek, and other topics coming up later on.
So, as Joe mentioned, we will be running through the wild card round of the playoffs. As you can see here, we're going to kind of do a similar style to what we did for during the before the MLB playoffs. So we're just going to take a look at where all the teams finished in uh, after week 16, and which team just barely missed out on the playoffs. So you can see here in the AFC, the number one seed is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs, who finished 14-2. The number two seed is the Buffalo Bills at 13-3. The number three seed is Pittsburgh Steelers, 12-4. Then there were a bunch of 11-5 teams, all of which made the playoffs due to tiebreakers and whatnot. It'll be the Titans at the number 4 seed, the Baltimore Ravens, number 5, Cleveland Browns, number 6, and the last team in, the Indianapolis Colts at 11-5, and the number 7 seed, and they needed to win their game in the afternoon after the Miami Dolphins, Joe. As we talked about last week, we kind of thought that they might have been the team left out, and unfortunately they went down to the Bills in a great season by the Miami Dolphins, but couldn't quite win at Buffalo in order to put them through into the playoffs.
Yeah, the Bills are trending upward, and for me are going to be really tough to beat. Josh Allen has played tremendously well all year. Their running game seems to do just enough, and their passing game with Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis, uh, and John Brown, they just really seem to click, and it's going to be interesting to see what the Bills can do in their first round matchup, which we'll get to in a little bit.
Um, and then another team who we had playing well in the beginning of the year, Las Vegas Raiders and John Gruden didn't quite pull it out, but maybe another team that next year might have something to say about the AFC West a little bit. Um, Moving down to the NFC here, uh, we have the number one seed is going to be the Green Bay Packers. The number two seed will be the New Orleans Saints by virtue of a tiebreaker over the Seahawks, who will be the number three seed at 12-4. Uh, Actually, the Washington football team are going to be the number 4 seed at 7-9. And then they will be playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 11-5. The number 6 seed will be the LA Rams, and the number 7 seed will be the Chicago Bears, even though they lost to Green Bay in the last week. Unfortunately, Joe, the last team last team out in the NFC, the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know if you saw, but Kyler Murray was unable to play in most of that game. They needed that win against the LA Rams to get in, but Cardinals just seem to miss out on the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I think DeAndre Hopkins is one of the best receivers in football, but if you double team him, who else catches the ball? Fitzgerald's getting older.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have Kenyon Drake. They just don't have the weapons. I think they need one more key receiver, whether it's a trade or free agency. But Arizona, not as strong as some of the other teams. If Murray was healthy, maybe a better game. But, the Rams could be dangerous. It's going to be interesting to see what even LA, the matchups they have. And we'll get into one of them in, again, a little bit. But yeah, the Cardinals just didn't have enough this year.
And then obviously we'll talk briefly about what happened in the NFC East yesterday. Now, obviously, the Washington football team is in the playoffs at 7-9. It was kind of came down to the wire. They needed to get a win against the Eagles, which they did on Sunday Night Football. And the Giants defeated the Cowboys in the afternoon, and they were the team that would have gone in had the Washington football team been a loss to the Eagles. There is we won't delve into it too much, but there is a little controversy going around right now because um, the Eagles were they were in the game, and Jalen Hurts, who had been taken over for Carson Wentz, was removed from the game in order to give, as Coach Doug Peterson said, give their number 3 Zach Sudfeld some snaps, which some people found a little interesting because they were still in the game, and he ended up turning the ball over twice, not playing well at all, and Washington came away with the victory, which kind of annoyed New York Giants fans because they needed Washington to lose that game in order to make the playoffs. Um, Joe, I won't ask too much about it, but just any brief thoughts about just the entire NFC East in general and Washington, who made it.
Well, real quick, I think the Giants don't have a gripe because you were 3-5 on the road and at home. So there's 6 games there you could have won, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
They could have won games and could have. So I don't want to hear from Giants fans. The Washington football team got in, but they also could have won games. So I'm going to say the same thing. And the same thing goes for Dallas, who struggled immensely, but losing Prescott, I can see that. You got to be a little bit of got to be compassionate to a certain degree. As far as the Eagles, I will say this: I don't ever suggest not winning a game, and I will honestly tell you that I almost fell on the floor when I heard Nate Sudfeld was on the field in the fourth quarter. You had you had Carson Wentz on street clothes. He wasn't playing. You have Jalen Hurts, who's been playing most of the last part of the season. You let him finish the game. You don't do that. And I don't care if it's for a pick or not. It doesn't look good. And Derek, I want to know, what you're thinking when it comes to that also.
Um, I think it was just a bad. It just looked very bad. Whether or not it was actually the case that he was trying to win the game, you can't dispute that. Like if he legitimately thought that, whatever. But um, any sort of NFL person knows that you had a better chance to win that game with Jalen Hurts in the game. Great. I mean, he wasn't throwing very well. That was a crappy game to all in general, which doesn't bode well for Washington later on. But um, I was a little disappointed that they took him out, didn't give him the chance to win the game, and a lot of people are saying, well, maybe it came down from the top, that because all they think about is they want a lower draft pick. And for those that don't know, if the Eagles lost that game last night, they would have received the number 6 draft pick, which is what they have. If they would have won that game, they would have went all the way up. I believe it would have been 9 or 10 that they would have had, and they're trying to look forward to next year. I understand that, but football is a game where, and you see a lot of the examples of a team like the Lions, who I was rooting for this past year. Uh, you saw Matt Stafford come out there and play very well this past week, which in a game that was meaningless. You don't see it so much in baseball. You see a lot of teams sit players and rest. You see it in the NBA. You don't see it in NFL. And I was a little disappointed that they did that. And I hope it doesn't affect uh, how their franchise is viewed in any way, and how they move forward with Doug Peterson, because they've talked about how they want to keep him. Well, it would be a shame if they said now that they weren't, because I guarantee people are going to look at that, and most likely it wasn't even him who made that call. So and it's kind of all over the place. So um but hey, congratulations to Washington. They won the game. Let's not take anything away from them. They won the game, and
Good
they'll be
defense.
representing the NFC in the NFL playoffs. So we're gonna get started. I couldn't really find a bracket that I liked to show on screen, and as Joe pointed out, we have a lot of listeners, people who just listen now, anyways. So we're just gonna run through the bracket of the playoffs now. Again, we're gonna start in the AFC. The number one seed is the Kansas City Chiefs, who finished 14-2. The Kansas City Chiefs will be playing whichever team is the lowest remaining seed left after this wild card round. Um, the first matchup we have is between the number 2 seeded Buffalo Bills and the number 7 seeded Indianapolis Colts. The Buffalo Bills, Joe, are a 6.5 point favorite as we are talking today on Monday. Um, and the Bills have been looking amazing offensively. So, is there any reason, Joe, that we think maybe the experience of Philip Rivers may come into play, and the lack of experience with Josh Allen, or do we think it's going to play out how most think, and Buffalo's going to put up a lot of points?
Well, Indianapolis has probably one of the best defenses, at least in the AFC. We know that. We've seen it. They hit hard. They defend well. Jonathan Taylor's been one of their stars at running back. The Wisconsin, uh, the rookie out of Wisconsin. He scored. Naeem Hines is pretty good there. They don't have that playmaking receiver though. Hilton's just okay. Michael Pittman's okay. They don't have that. Mo Alley Cox is a good tight end. I just have a feeling that Buffalo wins this game, but I don't know if it's a lot of points. Allen's going to get his points. He's going to run. He's going to throw, and he's going to hit receivers. But I'm seeing like a 20. I don't know, like a 21-14, like a touchdown game. I just see that. If I could have a crystal ball, I'd be like, is this, am I on the right track? But that's why we do this, right? We try to predict it. I will say, Derek, not to toot my own horn, but I had Buffalo with like 3 or 4 losses, so I'm feeling good about that with our predictions in the beginning of the season.
We'll go back there eventually and see how we did on
Okay, cool.
another episode, maybe at the end of the
Yeah,
year. But
yeah.
um, so I will say, so I wrote down how good each offense and defense is for each of these teams. So the Bills are the number 17 rush defense, number 13 pass defense. The Colts are number 2 rush defense and number 20 pass defense. So that tells me Josh Allen is going to be able to pass, but the Bills don't have a running game to begin with. They didn't have one guy who ran for over 700 yards. Singletary, I believe Singletary and Zach Moss were the two guys, and neither one really gained a ton of traction. But does that mean that they maybe pull some away from the running game from the box? The Colts have two studs, DeForest Buckner, who came over from the Niners, 9.5 sacks last year or this year. Darius Leonard, a very good linebacker. Um, the Colts are you kind of said it. The Colts are pretty boring offensively. They don't have a lot of T.Y. Hilton's not really, you know, a stud anymore. He got a little hot towards the end of the season. Um, how they're going to probably play it is the Colts are going to try to control the clock, run the ball a lot. The Bills' defense is pretty average. You heard the numbers I gave you. So it's going to come down to if the Colts can control the clock and with Taylor and Naheem Hines, like you mentioned, and Philip Rivers doesn't turn the ball over, I'll just keep digging myself a hole, Joe. I think the Colts could do it. I think the Colts could do it if they
An upset.
keep Allen off the field. A couple other stats: the Bills will be able to have 6,700 fans in. They said. Um, and this is the first home playoff game for the Buffalo Bills since 1996. And the quarterback running back duo was Thurman Thomas and you know they're gonna come to be there, and the fans are really gonna get going. So, but
Picking the Colts.
give me the Colts. Jim Kelly. I skipped over Jim Kelly's name. Jim Kelly
All
was
right.
the quarterback in '96. But give me the Colts
All
and put it down. Put it down for me.
right. Opposites in the first game, Derek. All right. The next game is going to be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where the 12-4, number 3 seeded Pittsburgh Steelers will take on the number 6, 11-5 Cleveland Browns. So, what do you think, Derek? We just saw the game. We just saw it yesterday.
Yeah.
What is your take on a game that hopefully most of these players will be healthy? Because that's the one thing, they weren't healthy yesterday. A lot of COVID situations there.
Now the Steelers blew out the Browns in the beginning of the season, and this one was a lot closer. But the Steelers didn't play. Big Ben didn't play. I'm pretty sure a receiver might not have played. I know Marcus Pouncey didn't play. They're starting center, um, and they're all going to be back. So your gut would tell you, well, that probably means the Steelers might come back and win this game. 4.5 point favorite Steelers are. Uh, the pass defense is number 3 in the league for the Steelers, and the run defense is number 11. That's nothing to sneeze at, um, but the Steelers can't run the ball, which is very odd because we go back years. The Steelers have always been the ground and pound team, and then we're going to stop you on defense. But James Conner really never got going this year, barely over 700 yards. He only played 13 games, but still, that's doesn't equate to probably even 1,000 yards. Now, on the other hand, the Browns can run the ball. Number 3 when it comes to rushing yards in the league. Um, the difference between that game or the first game we talked about and this game, because I think it's going to happen again, the Browns are going to try to control the clock. I think the difference is the Browns don't have a great defense. Um, they've allowed 30 plus points in 7 games this season, including one to the Steelers. Plus another name who was out, TJ Watt, who had 15 sacks, led the league this year, didn't play in week 17. He'll be playing in this game. Um, I The Steelers haven't been playing too well, but I think they win this game. It may be a little sloppy, uh, but I think the Steelers pull this one out and move on to what would be, I guess, well, yeah, I'm not too sure. Probably a home game. In my opinion, it'll be a home game. You would probably have them going to Buffalo if you have them winning. But who do you have? Do you think this would be the third time that the Steelers and Browns met in the playoffs, both won by the Steelers? Do they keep it going 3-0
Couple
against the Browns?
couple names to watch out for. Joe Hayden's going to play. He was out, the corner or
Mm,
defensive back. I'm not sure, corner safety, I forget.
corner.
The way Minka Fitzpatrick plays defense is amazing. He is so good. He's another key. Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, James Washington. I'm missing Juju
Juju.
Smith-Schuster. Like,
Yep.
it's just, they got so many weapons. I'd be crazy to think Cleveland's not going to come ready. Mayfield's fired up. Nick Chubb's a good running back. They're really good. They're just not there yet. And I think this is the situation is the Steelers are, and the Steelers can make noise. So I'm looking at that Pittsburgh Buffalo matchup going into the second week, I think.
Do you think
Steelers.
the rushing game, the running lack of a running game, obviously you don't think it'll hurt them too much in this game, but do you think eventually it's going to come to bite them? You can't. Can you really
Well,
lean on Big Ben too much?
Miles Garrett probably what is their best defensive player. The D lineman there.
Yeah.
He caused a lot of uproar. Um, he could really get to Big Ben, but the line for the Steelers is pretty good. They might not run block as well, and maybe that's why Benny Snell Jr. and Connor doesn't have a lot of holes. But they throw the ball well, and even if they throw the ball 10, 15 yards, they also look for Eric Ebron. That's another underrated name, former Colt tight end. He's another guy they look to a little bit. I just think the Steelers have really rolled, and they just have hit a road bump a couple weeks in a row. But I'm telling you, I think they win this game.
Yeah, and I mean, two of their losses. I mean, one was against the Browns. They had a tough game at Buffalo. That's a tough game. And home to Washington, that wasn't a great loss, but I
Yeah,
think
that
they'll
was
get
their
back on
streak game.
track. I think
Yeah.
we both agree that it'll be Pittsburgh moving through.
Yep.
In the 4-5 matchup in the AFC, that'll be between the Tennessee Titans, both teams 11-5, but the Titans won their division, so that's why they're the number 4. The number 4 seed Tennessee Titans and the number 5 seed Baltimore Ravens. Joe, I'm going to put you on the spot here because let's not forget that you had the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl. So are we? I mean, I'm not going to blame you if you want to change it, but do we have them? I know your love for Derrick Henry, so which is it? Is it the Derrick Henry love or is it the Baltimore Ravens love that is greater?
Well, I have to say that I've thought about this, and as good as Lamar Jackson is, he might not be the story here. The story might be, can the Baltimore Ravens defense make Ryan Tannehill beat them? They have to stop Derrick Henry. If Derrick Henry rushes for 200 yards, they're going to lose the game probably.
Yeah.
Right? In most likelihood. But Derrick, guess what? You opened up a can of worms. I'm sticking with my Baltimore Ravens. Let's go. The Baltimore Ravens beat the Titans because Jackson's too much, and the defense, who's very underrated, I might add. They're a pretty good defense. I think they're going to be able to bottle up Henry a little bit. I think they're going to be able to know what's coming, and they play throughout the year. I'm going to stick with it. I'm not saying to go to the Super Bowl, but I'm saying Lamar Jackson advances at least one round.
Does it scare you at all that last year Baltimore, I believe, was the number 1 seed, and Tennessee went in there in the divisional round, upset them. Lamar Jackson looked very bad. Does that scare you at all, or do you think that's more incentive for them to go into Tennessee and win it?
There's a difference here. They're not home, right? They're not in Baltimore.
Right?
They're going to Tennessee. John Harbaugh is going to come out guns blazing, Maybe he's having some conversations with his brother too. Give him some advice. I
Yeah.
don't know. No, I listen. They need guys to step up. They need was it Duvernay, uh, Willie Snead, Mark Andrews. Jackson needs help, and the running game for Baltimore needs to get there. But and again, I'm gonna say it one more time. The Ravens probably aren't going to the Super Bowl, but they will win this game, and they might make a little noise the next week. You never know. This is why it's the NFL, Derek. Great
You
question.
never know what's going to happen in the NFL.
Great
So
question.
here's the here's how they line up for each team. The Titans are the number 19 rush defense and the number 29 pass defense, whereas the Ravens are the number 8 rush defense and the number 6 pass defense. Obviously, the Baltimore Ravens defense. The Titans last year were they skated by because they were able to lean on Henry heavily, and they pressured the quarterback fairly well, including Lamar Jackson, and pressured him to turn the ball over. Now, what's interesting is they do have the highest takeaway differential at plus 11. So they don't turn
Uh,
the ball over, but they do get turnovers. So if Tennessee gets turnovers, they give up the yards, but eventually they seem to get some turnovers in key spots. Um, Obviously, we know number one rush defense offense for the Ravens, and number two rush offense for the Titans. Number 32 pass offense for the Ravens, and Lamar Jackson really did not do much passing this year. Um, by the way, the last four playoff matchups that featured the leading rusher in the league and the top rush defense all were won by the leading rushers team. I think that changes next week. You got it right. The Baltimore Ravens are going to go in there. I think now, last time they actually played in week 10, Derrick Henry had 28 carries for 133 yards, which may even be kind of a quiet game ish.
yeah.
They did win in Baltimore. I don't know. I think Baltimore is really hitting their stride. Um, they've scored 30, they've averaged 34.6 in the last 7 games. Um, so I really think that they are going to be able to. It's going to be a low scoring game, I think, because there's going to be a lot of long drives. Look for Lamar Jackson, Dobbins, Gus Edwards to really pound the rock. And I think they're going to be able to bottle up Henry enough. He'll probably still get his 100 yards, but I think they'll do enough to shut down Tennessee and get that. It'll be a very close win, but I think it'll. I'll shoot for like a 20 game winning field goal for Justin Tucker, which I think is another key. Is going to be Justin Tucker, who could push them to victory. 23-20, Baltimore wins it.
I like it, Derek. I like it. Well, we're heading over to the NFC, and Derek's number one seeded Green Bay Packers have the bye at 13-3 with an impressive win over Mitch Trubisky and the Chicago Bears, which we'll get to in a second. So the number two seeded New Orleans Saints are 12-4. They're going to host the number 7 Chicago Bears. And Derek, all I can say is the Bears are very mediocre. Do they have any chance at beating Drew Brees in his quest, maybe in his final year, possibly? Injuries and everything on his age aside, do the Bears have a chance to knock off the Saints in New Orleans? Talk about a story, Derek.
Well, the people in Vegas certainly don't think so. That the Saints are favored by 10 points in this game, and with good reason. I mean, but I will say, if there's something for the Bears, it's been a long time, maybe not even this season, uh, since Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, and Michael Thomas have all been healthy. out there for the Saints. And are the Bears a scary enough defense to um shut go into New Orleans? I don't know if New Orleans is going to have any fans. But it's actually the Saints defense that's top 5 in both rush and pass defense.
Cam
Um
Jordan,
yeah, the
he's a
Bears
beast.
are only 15 run defense and 12 pass defense. Um I think it's going to come down to takeaways probably. The Saints are number 3 in takeaways in the NFL this year, and Mitch Trubisky. Um, whether or not he's the guy that they end up moving on with next season, I don't know, but I think he's going to have to make some plays because I think they're gonna make him beat them. They're not going to let David Montgomery, who's been playing very well in the past few weeks. No, not this week against the Packers, but
I,
he's
Malcolm
been playing
Jenkins will be
very
big too.
well. So I'm sure they're gonna, and I mean he has targets. He has Allen Robinson and Anthony Miller there, and they just Jimmy Graham. I
Former,
mean,
former Notre Dame tight end Cole Kmet is there.
yes. Are those scary enough? I don't think so. I think this has the potential to be a blowout. I think unfortunately, and that's not me just hating on the Bears. I don't think the Bears are a playoff team though. Honestly, uh, they got a little bit of a hot streak, but I think they're a 500 team at best, and I think the Saints might beat them by 3 or
They are 8-8.
2 touchdowns to 17 points or so.
Uh, yeah, I think the Bears are they're just average at best, and I just think that Drew Brees will be too much. I do want to tell you though, looking up top, if the Packers advance far enough, could we see Drew Brees versus Aaron Rodgers? Because that would be an awesome matchup. You would
I
be a
think
little
there's
nervous,
a
I think.
Oh yeah, well yeah, for sure.
I mean, great quarterback.
I
I
think
bet
there's a very distinct possibility that we see both Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers versus Drew Brees in the same playoffs here. Um,
that's unbelievable.
I think it's and I've always wanted to see a Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers matchup. I wanted it in the Super Bowl with the Patriots, but
Would have been interesting.
never ended up happening. But it should
No,
be
I picked
very
the
interesting.
Saints.
So you're
I,
going
I,
Saints as well.
yeah, I go New Orleans here, and I like the favorite of 10 too. That's a lot of points. So, well, Derek, it's time for our next matchup, which is an interesting one.
Yep, and that'll bring us to the number 3 seeded Seattle Seahawks and the number 6 seed uh, Los Angeles Rams. Um, Now, Joe, obviously they played. They would have played 2 times this year. The Seahawks are the 4.5 point favorite. The LA Rams could potentially. It's kind of up in the air here on Monday whether or not Jared Goff is going to play or not. Um, but the Seahawks and the Rams did split. The Rams won at home 23-16, and then in week 16, the Seahawks won at home against the Rams 20-9. Um, Obviously, we're not going to be able to tell if Jared Goff plays. Let's say he does play. Do we think that their offense can keep up with Russ Wilson and the amount of points that they've been putting up, which has kind of been slowing down a little bit from the beginning of the season when the Seahawks were really firing on all cylinders.
The one thing that people have to remember is the running back for Seattle, Chris Carson, has been injured a lot this year. So
Mhm.
that's a big loss. They have Carlos Hyde, they have DJ Dallas, they have a couple guys behind them, but not Chris Carson's ability. Russell Wilson is arguably pound for pound one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I think top 5. Uh, he's really good. I know Aaron Donald's really good, but this might be a game where the Rams and Goff might need to really make big plays. I don't see it. I think the Seahawks make bigger plays, and I think it's a. You know what? This is the game that I think could be the blowout. I think
Hmm.
Seattle wins by more than 3 touchdowns. They're going to prove why it's incredible to draft a guy like DJ Metcalf. He's going to go off, and I don't believe in the Rams defense other than Aaron Donald. So I say Seahawks by a lot.
I mean, so the Rams defense is what really has brought them to where they're at. Number one against rush defense, number three against pass defense. Whereas
So
you can very much throw against the Seahawks, 31st against the pass.
right.
Both teams are really middle of the road in terms of their offense. Um, I mean, the Rams do have Ramsey as well, who came over from the Jaguars. I remember. I would imagine he might go up against Metcalf. Uh, you said win by. I don't even know if 3 touchdowns are going to be scored by the winning team in this game. I think it could be very low scoring. I'm going to say probably around 17-13. I am going with the Seahawks. Because I have them winning the Super Bowl. I don't know if we'll see how I feel after this game. If they look horrible, I may have to move away from that. But I think Russell Wilson will make enough plays. I think Carson and Hyde will get a little bit going in the run game. Not too much, though, because they are the number one rush defense, and I don't see them, the Seahawks, doing a ton. But I think Lockett and Metcalf will do enough and make just a couple more plays than the Rams can. The Rams just none of the running backs scare me. The offense really has not been the same, and I guess we can go back to what we said in the beginning of the year. Has the league kind of figured out uh McVay?
Right.
Have they kind of figured him out a little bit because his offense has significantly slowed down? So
Great
should
question.
be a good game, I think, but I think very low scoring, especially if Goff doesn't play. Um, I think we can both say if Goff does not play, there's pretty much no chance. But I mean, you have them being blown out regardless. So
I like Seattle. I've liked them since the beginning, and I just don't know if they can't kick it in high gear now. But you're right, defense has to make plays, and so I think the LA Rams scored only 18 yesterday. If that game is what you're saying, it could be 17-13. That's more in the Rams' favor. The Rams probably don't want to score as many, or
very
that's the
true.
kind of game the Rams want to play. They're not that team from a couple years ago when they went to the Super Bowl. They're not that team anymore.
Right.
But they need Josh Reynolds and Cooper Kupp and players like that to step up. Like this is the playoffs. You lose in your home. You don't have another week to play football. So,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, this is our last one for the NFL, and time permitting, we're either going to go a little Heisman or some of the games we watched over the weekend. But our last game in the NFL, Derek, number 4 is Washington. Is that what I have right?
Mm-hmm.
The number 4 seeded Washington football team, 6-9, and just got in because of the Eagles debacle last night versus the number 5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Real quick, Tom Brady's not losing in the first round. I got news for you. It's not happening. He's not losing in the first round. I don't care if you play in Alaska. He's not losing in the first round. He didn't go to Tampa Bay to lose in the first round. So that's my take. Derek, Tampa wins easily. What do you got?
It's a different team, Joe. It's a different team. It's not the Patriots. This is the
I know, but
Buccaneers.
I don't see it.
They may be without Mike Evans. I saw that he dropped out, although Antonio Brown filled right in.
38 yards.
Washington is the number 2 pass defense. The 25 and under in terms of both offensive categories. The Buccaneers are number 1 against the run, and they are number 2 pass offense in the league. They can't really stop the pass. They can't really run the ball.
Alex Smith healthy.
If we even if we go back to the days of the Patriots, the teams who always gave Tom Brady the trouble were people who put pressure on the quarterback.
Good.
Washington is in the top 10 in terms of number of contacts with opposing quarterbacks. They do put pressure on the quarterback.
Chase Young.
Can you say that that was Chase Young being one main reason? Could you say that that was due to playing 6 games against the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Eagles? Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. But I listen, if why all these games, why is this one the prime time game? It must be a close game. It has to be a close game. They wouldn't. I really don't think that they would make it a primetime game if it's not going to be close. I think I can't do it. I can't pick Washington. Uh, the Buccaneers
Pick the
are
Colts.
an 8-point favorite for a reason. But do not be shocked. Do not be shocked if this is a very close game. Um, I think it could be 20 to and it won't be high scoring if Washington is going to um make it a game. They have a couple offensive weapons. Gibson is a very good running back. McLaurin, we mentioned last week, I think. Logan Thomas, a very good tight end. I'd love to see Alex Smith come back and win a playoff game. Um, by the way, this is the third team ever to win a division with a losing record. The last two were 2010 Seattle.
Wow.
The
Wow.
New Orleans Saints went to Seattle and lost that game. They got beast moded by one Marshawn Lynch, and they ended up
Wow.
winning that game. And then I believe in 2014 Carolina,
Good point
and they
there. Oh,
lost. But um,
I just
I, I can't
Brady
do it. I
Eagles.
can't do it.
Yeah.
Give me Brady, but
Yeah.
I think it'll be very close, a lot closer than people think, and Washington may almost pull it out.
All
I
right.
hope they can. So, in recap, I guess we only have one difference, right? And that's
Yeah. Your
technically
Colts.
one that I should not have picked, but I picked it anyway. Um, so
Hope it's not
in
your injury.
the AFC 2 versus 7, Bills versus Colts. Joe went Bills. I went with the Colts. 3 versus 6, Steelers and Browns. We both went Steelers. 4-5, Titans, Ravens. We both went Ravens, who are actually the favorite in that game over the Titans. I don't know if I said at 3.5-point favorites. In the NFC 2-7, we both went Saints. 3-6, Seahawks Rams. We both went Seahawks. And 4-5, we both went Buccaneers over Washington. Um, Joe, I'm just gonna throw this out there real quick. Give me a team who is a 4 seed or less, who you believe has the best chance to make a run at the Super Bowl. 4 seed or less.
Um, it's listen. The AFC is so top heavy because I feel like Kansas City,
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and they're all not 4 seeds anyway. But I'm just saying it's top heavy. I think the Buccaneers have a chance. I do.
Yeah.
Listen, it's all lining up for them. I mean, even your Packers, if they get there, Brady,
They
that
dominated the
defense.
Packers in
So
in
that's
Tampa
right.
Bay, but
That's right. That was one win, and that could still maybe be interesting revenge game for Green Bay. I just think that it to me until he's done, he's the best quarterback ever to play the game. People are not gonna love him because he's not lovable. He's a jerk. He always has been a jerk, and that's not really to debate. I don't care if you like him or not. You know he's a jerk, but the bottom line is he's talented. We're never gonna see a guy like him again. Like the way he throws the football, the way he makes decisions, the way his players respect him on the field. You know, he's Michael Jordan. It's who he is. And now he's going to do it in another city. If he does this, forget about it. I mean, he's to me, he's going to always be up there. But I think Tampa Bay with maybe too many weapons. I just think they're going to end up possibly, possibly running through the NFC. That Breeze Brady matchup could be interesting. Brady Wilson could be interesting. Brady Rogers also interesting. But
Yeah.
those three teams right there, those four I just mentioned, they're the teams that are going to come out of the NFC. I don't see anybody else.
I, I think I think you're completely right. I think whereas the AFC, which is kind of an anomaly, that even with a seventh team, they are all 7-5, 11-5 or better. All the teams in the AFC in the playoffs. So I
Yeah.
really would not be shocked if any of those teams made the Super Bowl because
No, it wouldn't be shocking.
even the Chiefs have not looked dominant the past. I mean, they didn't play their starters this week, but
Right.
and they lost, but they have not looked unbeatable. Their offensive line has been shaky. They haven't been able to get running the ball too well. So, and even down to the Colts, who may have arguably one of the best defenses in the league. So, I would not be shocked if anyone in the AFC made it. But I think you're absolutely correct. I think there's probably about four teams that can make it out of the NFC: the Packers, the Saints, the Seahawks, and the Buccaneers. And I don't see any chance whatsoever that Washington, the Rams, or the Bears get into the Super Bowl. But
Huge upsets. If one of them happens, it'd be fun to see. But
it,
those quarterbacks are all so legendary and so good. The AFC boasts the defenses, though. That's going to be interesting.
yeah,
It's going to be an AFC defense to get them to the Super Bowl, and then it's going to be the NFC offensive weapons and quarterback. That's what it's going to end up being. I mean, at least that's what I'm seeing.
unless if the Bills make the Super Bowl, then
And if
it'll
that
be
happens,
then it'll
if that
be an
happens,
offense.
you might be sleeping on the couch because Lindsay's going to be all over you about
Well, yeah.
that. But it happens, right? We're human. We just
Anything could happen in the NFL, that's for sure.
That's true. That's true.
So we'll jump into the well, how about we jump into the January 1st games for college football real quick, Joe? We have a little bit of time.
Let's do it.
So obviously there were two big games in college football that we'll just talk about real quick because next week we're going to talk about the championship game. That, spoiler alert, will be between the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Ohio State Buckeyes. Neither one, unfortunately, was a great game. The number one seed, Alabama, played your Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and then Clemson, uh, the number two seed, played Ohio State, the number three seed. Joe, we'll just talk briefly about the Alabama and Notre Dame game. Alabama won that one 31-14. What do you think went wrong with Notre Dame, or was it really just a matter of Alabama is just more talented and there's not much you could do about it?
Going into the game, I think I said it here in the show, and I think I've been able to make myself believe this because when you hear all year how talented you are and how good of a defense they had, guess what? It doesn't matter when you can't stop people.
Yeah.
Devontae Smith, if he doesn't win the Heisman tomorrow night, it's robbery. He is the best player in college football. It's not even close. I don't want to hear Trevor Lawrence. I don't want to hear his quarterback, Mac Jones. Devontae Smith, if you take him out of Alabama, that might have been a 31-21 game. I will give credit also, though, and Alabama doesn't get a lot of credit for this. They have a kid on the defense named Patrick Surtain, who is one of the best defensive players in college football. Notre Dame's Ian Book wouldn't even look his way. Does that not tell you something? Like, that's the talent gap that's there, right? Like,
yeah,
Notre Dame receivers couldn't get open. Like, so Alabama is a very good football team, and they're probably bordering on the line of being great. Notre Dame is a good football team, but looked very average on Friday night. And I was happy as a fan, though, that I lowered my expectations, and I kept saying to myself, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be good. You can't get to the outside. Like, what are we going to do? How you move the ball, But no, Alabama, Najee Davis is a great running back. Reminds me of Derrick Henry a little bit. I was going to tell you that's my opinion on Najee Harris. He's such a freaking beast. And everybody forgets about Mac Jones, and all he does is throw the ball to all these guys.
Yeah.
So Alabama, great year Notre Dame, but Alabama just so talented, and that's what I feel about Alabama. They're just supremely talented.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of saw it throughout the game. It was just they're just too talent. They're just too freakish of athletes in
Yeah,
comparison to Notre Dame, where Notre Dame has, maybe five athletes that are on that top tier. Alabama might have 10 to 15 that are on that top tier, and it's just it's too tough to keep up with. And I can't say I was shocked at all at how it ended up turning out. Now there was a surprise in the 2-3 game. Obviously, I believe Clemson finished being about a 7-point favorite, something like that. Clemson went down to Ohio State 49-28 in a performance that I don't think anyone saw coming, including ourselves. um, Justin Fields just had an absolute monster of a game, throwing for 6 touchdowns, 385 yards. Let's not even mention Trey Sermon, who had almost 200 yards, but he was kind of on the back burner.
right.
Uh, wow. Hats off to the Buckeyes. I guess they shut people up who said, oh, they only played 6 games. They didn't deserve to be in the playoffs. What were your thoughts on that game, Joe?
Well, here's the thing. I watched the whole first half, and then I just said I'm going to bed because I actually wasn't feeling too well. But I'm going to be honest. I think Justin Fields was sick of hearing about Trevor Lawrence. He had to hear about him all last year, right? And then I'm
Yeah,
sitting there and I'm
when
like,
they beat him.
Justin Fields is throwing balls to Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson and anybody else you want to name. And guess what? Trey Sermon knows how to run in a big game. He did it at Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
So, but again, Derek, I want to make this point, and I think a lot of our local listeners will get the analogy I'm going for here. Notre Dame High School to Easton. That's kind of what I felt like watching Notre Dame versus Alabama. Like the huge athlete that the Easton High School gets compared to what Notre Dame will throw out there. So now you look at Ohio State and Alabama. Yeah, they might have closed the gap a little bit. Sorry. Please tell me who's going to stop Devontae Smith. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, Alabama looks so good on paper and hopefully on the field, as far as I'm rooting for them for numerous reasons, I guess, right now. But to me, to be honest with you, Clemson's really good. Dabo Sweeney, I love to hear his interview. I start to gain a little more respect for him, even though he politics or his players a little too much, if you ask me. And he might cry tomorrow night if Trevor Lawrence doesn't win the Heisman. But to be really frank though, Dabo Sweeney answered all the questions the other night, and he just said, like, we didn't have it. They beat us. They beat us off the ball, all that stuff. Good for him, because he talks a lot of junk before the games, but you got to fess up at the end of it. And I'll be the first one to say it. I never thought Clemson would lose that game. I didn't see it coming. I never saw it coming. Good job, Ohio State, and good luck.
Now, it's kind of been a rumor now. What are your thoughts? When we can probably talk about this as we get a little closer. What are your thoughts on Justin Fields potentially now making his way up draft boards and maybe even going to the Jets at number 2? Because everyone was saying, oh, well, now maybe the Jets might feel a little bit better losing that number 1 position now that Justin Fields just played so well. Maybe we might want to see how it goes against Alabama before we.
Well, and give Darnold a chance. Like, give Darnold a chance.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, listen, he's a sexy pick because he's such an athlete. I mean, the kid transferred from the University of Georgia because he wasn't going to throw the ball 80 times a game. Look at what he's doing. He's making plays with his feet, and he's also throwing the ball. I will say, though, I give him a lot of credit for coming out after he got hit like he did. That Skalski hit, whether it was targeting or not, it was a terrible hit, and it was a shame to see a 20-year-old kid have to suffer the pain he was in. I mean, he got hit hard with that kid's helmet.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your original question, no, they need to get the old lineman from Oregon, and I forget his name. My brother should get props for that. He's been telling me about him. He wants the Eagles to get him at 6. Yep. But really, don't go for a quarterback. Like, just let Fields drop a little bit. It's not the end of the world. But he's gonna go nuts at the combine. And God forbid they beat Alabama. God forbid they beat Alabama. He'll go too. But you're
I
right,
will
though.
I will
You're
say
right.
if he dominates again and they beat Alabama, I think he's pretty much set as the number 2 pick.
Right.
Whether or not it's the Jets
Oh, good
is up
point.
in the air, but someone will draft up to take
The
him at number
Patriots.
2. Maybe they
I
did say that they're moving
they're
on from Cam Newton, so maybe the
they're doing
Patriots.
something. They could trade for
Um,
Carson Wentz too. I figure that's a possibility.
do
Bill
we have
Belichick, Carson
a
Wentz.
quick prediction for the Alabama and Ohio State game?
Sure, but since that's not till next Monday, I want to give my prediction for tomorrow night because
Okay.
that's tomorrow. But yeah, no, I can do that too. Um, please tell me that we have the Heisman right this year. Devontae Smith, he comes back to school. I hope he wins it. I have a bad feeling that him and Mac Jones might cancel votes out. I hope that doesn't hurt
Mm,
him. Trevor Lawrence could walk away with it, which again, I guess it's not the worst. He's a great player. I guess you can't go wrong with either of them. But Smith he won the AP Player of the Year. I just found that out. Usually, the AP Player of the Year winner will win the award. So again, we can maybe talk about it our next show because we'll be doing one in the next couple of days. And Derek, Alabama 35, Ohio State 21.
35-21. I think it could be even higher. I
42.
I think I'll
28.
go about 45-28. I think
Okay.
it'll be something
Okay.
like that for Alabama. No one can stop them. Nobody has it all year. In fact, Notre Dame may have done one of the better
Yeah.
jobs. I
Right.
believe, I don't
Yeah.
have it in front of me, but I believe they scored, I think I said 38 was the lowest. So they kept them to the lowest. They just had to score more points. Um,
Waddle. Remember that name? Javon Waddle, or he's a receiver. He's been hurt. He might be back. If he's back, what's Ohio State gonna do? You pay attention to Smith or Waddle. One
yeah.
of them's gonna hurt you, Derek. Oh man. If he's back,
And
I don't know.
as
I hope
far
I have
as as far as the Heisman pick for tomorrow, Joe, the last wide receiver was Desmond
Desmond
Howard.
97, Derek.
I think we're due, right? I think we're due.
All right.
And I think that huge game kind of sealed it a little bit. I don't know what the percentage is of Mac Jones's targets and total
Right.
yards and touchdowns, but I would
Good point.
imagine it's probably all over 50% to Smith, and I think he deserves it. I think he deserves it. I think it'll probably go Smith, Lawrence, and then
Trask.
probably I think Trask will get knocked down because
Yeah.
they didn't play very well against Alabama, and I think he'll probably end up being fourth. But we'll see. So check that out. That will probably be tonight for those who are watching this live on Tuesday. But well, that'll finish us up. That was our NFL wild card preview and talked a little college. Next week we'll probably, and Joe may mention, we're probably going to continue to do NFL throughout the playoffs here, at least a little bit, but probably also talk about the some baseball if that ends up happening. And then at least maybe the NCAA championship game. That'll be next Monday. So check that out. Ohio State, Alabama. That'll be next Monday, the 11th.
11th.
I believe that is the 11th.
Yeah, the 11th.
But as always, Joe, any last thoughts?
No, it was a good show. Enjoy talking about the coming up in the NFL playoffs, and we're definitely we'll get into them more as we go. And I can't wait to see if we hit home on any of the games and how they're going to play out, because a lot of this is going to be weather related, and what quarterbacks play well, right, and in what conditions. And but I will say though, I think the Browns, if they do beat the Steelers, I know we both didn't pick it, but if they do, and the way Baker Mayfield has this attitude of like, he's ready to take this team. If they beat the Steelers, they could make a
Yeah.
run. I won't be surprised. But I will say, I just think Pittsburgh and Tomlin know how to win now, and that loss is definitely too fresh in their minds. Just to end it with that, the Steelers will beat the Browns. I think it's gonna be a good game though. It will be fun to watch. So
Yeah.
other than that, though, let's come back and do another good show. Whatever we decide in Thursday, Friday area, I guess.
Yeah. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if we're wrong about any of these, but hey, we've been wrong before. If anyone goes back to our and we're eventually going to do it. We're going to go back to look at our NFL records prediction show. I believe that was episode 4.
It was
If
early.
anyone wants to go back and see how we did before we end up reacting to it, we'll see how close we ended up being after the season. But that'll do it for us for today. As always, please, you can follow us on YouTube. We're available on YouTube now, all podcast platforms. Obviously, we're on Facebook. You can send us emails. We're all over the place. Um, Feel free to comment, reach out, and with any predictions you might have, or teams that you were disappointed how they finished, or you hope that they make it all the way to the Super Bowl, let us know. um, as always, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us here at Timeout. Everyone take care and stay safe.